What if one forgotten child's words could change a billionaire's life forever? Christmas Eve had the city buzzing like it was plugged straight into magic. Storefronts glowed, carolers laughed off-key, and people rushed past with bags full of gifts and faces full of hope. Everywhere you looked, warmth spilled into the streets. Everywhere except the bus stop at the end of Maple Street. Before we continue, please tell us, where in the world are you tunning in from? And if you believe that stories of kindness, everyday miracles, and ordinary people deserve to be shared even further. Don't forget to subscribe so you won't miss any journey like this one. The streetlight above it flickered like it was on its last nerve. Snow dusted the metal bench, making it look colder than it already was. The wind sliced through coats and bones alike, carrying the distant sound of celebration from just a few blocks away. Mark Holloway sat at the far end of the bench, motionless. He looked like a guy who had everything: expensive coat, polished boots, but his eyes told a different story. They were empty, gray, the kind of eyes that had seen too much and decided to feel nothing at all. A paper cup of coffee rested in his gloved hand, untouched, already cold. Across from him sat a young woman clutching her little boy. Her jacket was thin, her boots scuffed to hell, but she smiled like she was trying to keep the world from noticing. She rubbed her son's hands between hers, breathing warmth into them like it might be enough. The kid couldn't have been older than 6. Red nose, big eyes, jeans too short, sleeves too small. He kept watching the road like it owed him something. "Is that ours, Mom?" he asked quietly as another car sped by. She shook her head. "Not yet, buddy, just someone headed home." The boy nodded, but his eyes drifted toward the glowing apartment windows across the street. Families laughing, trees lit up. Warmth he could almost feel but couldn't touch. Then the wind hit harder. The boy leaned closer to his mom and whispered, barely loud enough to exist. "Mom said Santa forgot us again." The words landed like a punch. Mark froze. Something inside him cracked, sharp and sudden. He slowly turned his head, staring at the boy like he'd just heard a ghost speak. That voice. Same age, same tone, same quiet disappointment. A memory slammed into him, his daughter standing at the window years ago, waiting. He'd promised he'd be home early that Christmas. Promised. Instead, he stayed late chasing numbers that didn't matter. He never got a second chance. Mark swallowed hard. Before he could stop himself, he spoke. "Hey kid, how old are you?" The boy glanced at his mom, then back. "6, I just turned 6." Mark nodded. "6 is a big deal." The boy smiled a little. "We had store cake, vanilla. It melted though." Mark almost laughed. Almost? The woman watched him closely now, protective but tired. Mark noticed everything: the worn coat, the trembling hands, the way she tried to stay strong. Snow started falling harder. The street felt quieter, colder. Mark stared down the empty road, then back at them. And for the first time in years, he felt it. That heavy, uncomfortable pull of a moment that was about to change everything. Because some nights don't end at the bus stop, and some strangers don't stay strangers for long. But Mark had no idea that the next decision he made would drag him straight into a Christmas he never planned, and a family he never expected. Snow came down harder now, thick flakes swirling like the night was trying to erase the city. The bus stop light buzzed overhead, flickering like it might quit any second. Mark checked his watch out of habit, even though he had nowhere to be. The woman, Anna, shifted her son higher on her hip. The kid's eyelids fluttered, sleep fighting the cold. Mark noticed her glance at her phone again, thumb swiping like hope might suddenly load. "No signal," she muttered, more to herself than anyone else. Mark followed her gaze down the street. Empty. No headlights, no bus. Just snow piling up like bad news. "The bus isn't coming," he said finally. Anna stiffened. "They didn't cancel it." He shook his head. "Storm like this, they shut down late routes fast. Happens every year." She hesitated, jaw tightening. "We'll wait a little longer." Mark didn't push. He knew that look, the kind that says I've been stuck worse than this. Still, something twisted in his chest watching the kid shiver. Minutes passed. Wind howled. The city's joy felt a million miles away. Mark exhaled and made a decision he hadn't planned to make. "My place is close," he said carefully. "Few blocks, you could warm up, no pressure. Just heat." Anna turned fully toward him now, her guard snapped up. "We're fine." "I'm not asking you to trust me forever," he said, "just long enough to not freeze." The kid lifted his head, squinted at Mark. "Mom, he kinda looks like Santa." Mark blinked. Of all things, that hit him hardest. Anna let out a quiet laugh, then stopped when she saw Mark didn't smile. He didn't look offended, he looked wrecked. She studied him again, really studied him, not the coat, not the money, the loneliness clinging to him like frostbite. "Just to warm up," she said finally. "Then we leave." Mark nodded immediately. "That's fair." The walk was quiet. Snow crunched under boots. The kid, Jamie, skipped ahead, leaving messy footprints like he owned the sidewalk. Mark's house rose out of the snow like something out of another life. Big, stone steps, tall windows dark as secrets. Inside, the heat hit them fast. Jamie sighed loud. Whoa, the place was clean but hollow. No decorations, no pictures, no Christmas, just space. "Where's your tree?" Jamie asked, blunt as kids always are. Mark paused. "Didn't feel like putting one up," Jamie shrugged. "That's okay, trees get tired too." Anna stayed near the door, still unsure. Mark turned on more lights. The house slowly woke up like it hadn't expected company. "Tea?" he asked. "Coffee? Tea's good," Anna said quietly. Jamie wandered off immediately. "There's a closet with boxes." Mark froze. "Jamie," Anna warned. "It's fine," Mark said. His voice was tight. "Let him look." A moment later, Jamie yelled, "There's a tree in here." Silence filled the room. Mark closed his eyes. "That was my daughter's," he said. "She used to decorate it." Anna didn't ask questions. She just nodded. The kettle screamed. Mark poured water with shaking hands. "I didn't go to the hospital," he said suddenly. "Not right away." Anna looked up. "I thought work couldn't wait." His voice cracked. "I was wrong." The words hung heavy. Anna swallowed. "I lie to Jamie sometimes," she admitted. "About Santa, about things being okay." Mark looked at her. "Guess we both did what we had to," she added softly. Jamie came running back, eyes shining. "Can we decorate it?" "Please?" Mark stared at the kid, at the tree, at the past. Then he nodded. "Yeah," he said. "Just this once." Jamie cheered like Christmas just punched him in the face. And Mark didn't realize it yet, but that old tree was about to bring a whole lot more back than memories. Because once the decorations came out, so did the truths Mark had buried for years, and one of them was about to break him wide open. The storage boxes hadn't been opened in years. Dust puffed into the air as Jamie ripped one open like it was treasure. Ornaments clinked together, dull at first, then catching the light like they were waking up. "This one's broken," Jamie said, holding up a cracked star. Mark crouched beside him. "Still works," he said. "Broken things usually do." Anna glanced at him, surprised. They dragged the old artificial tree into the living room. One side leaned like it had given up halfway through life. "It's crooked," Jamie announced. Mark shrugged. "So am I," that earned a laugh from Anna, real, not forced. They worked slowly. Jamie hung ornaments too low. Anna fixed garlands. Mark mostly watched, unsure where he fit, until Jamie shoved a string of lights into his hands. "You're tall," the kid said. "That's your job." Mark swallowed and plugged them in. Half the lights flickered, half stayed dark. Jamie clapped. "It's like the trees blinking." Mark almost lost it right there. From the bottom of the box, Jamie pulled out a small wooden ornament, a reindeer, name written in faded gold. "Emily," Jamie read out loud. Mark's chest tightened. "That was my daughter," he said quietly. Jamie didn't get awkward, didn't look away. He just held it out carefully. "Do you want to hang it?" Mark knelt, hands shaking, and passed it back. "You do it." Jamie stretched on his toes and placed it front and center. "Best spot," he declared. The music box came next. Jamie wound it up. The tune filled the room, soft, familiar. "Silent Night," Jamie hummed, then started singing. Off-key, fearless. Mark turned away, pressing his fingers into the windowsill. His reflection stared back at him, older, broken, but still breathing. That song. Last thing his daughter sang to him. Tears spilled before he could stop them. Anna noticed but didn't rush him. She just kept decorating like she understood grief didn't want attention, it wanted space. When the song ended, the room went quiet. Jamie looked up. "Do you miss her?" Mark nodded. Every day, Jamie thought about that. Then hugged him, no warning, just wrapped his arms around Mark's neck. Mark froze, then hugged back. Hard. For a second, the house didn't feel empty anymore. Later, tea steamed on the table. Jamie curled up with an old stuffed bear Mark found in the box. "She loved that one," Mark said. Jamie smiled. "Then I'll take care of it." Mark didn't argue. Morning came softer than expected. Snow stopped. Light slipped through the windows. They ate breakfast together like it wasn't weird, like it wasn't new. When it was time to leave, Anna bundled Jamie up. "Thank you," she said, meaning everything. Jamie handed Mark a folded paper. "For you." Inside was a crayon drawing, 3 stick figures, a tree, and messy words. "Santa didn't forget us." Mark couldn't speak. Jamie hugged him again. "Don't be alone next Christmas, okay?" The door closed behind them. Mark stood there holding the paper like it was proof he still mattered. Outside, the world moved on. Inside, something had started. But Mark didn't know that this wasn't the end of the story. It was the moment fate decided to come back for him again. The house felt different after they left. Not quiet, heavy. Mark stood in the living room staring at the crooked tree like it might say something back. The half-dead lights blinked on and off, throwing shadows across the walls. For the first time in years, the silence didn't feel peaceful. It felt unfinished. He folded Jamie's drawing carefully and slid it into his coat pocket like it belonged there. For days, Mark tried to go back to normal. Board meetings. Glass offices. People talking numbers like feelings didn't exist. Everyone called him Sir, and Mr. Holloway like he was untouchable. But every time someone complained about delays or losses, his mind drifted back to a kid with frozen hands and a woman pretending everything was fine. On Friday afternoon, Mark ditched a meeting mid-sentence. He didn't explain. He drove instead. The old bookstore downtown was quiet, the kind of place that smelled like dust and cinnamon. He stepped inside to escape the cold and stopped dead. Jamie sat on the floor in the kids' section, waving a book like a trophy. "And then Santa found us," Jamie told the shopkeeper proudly. "He was sad, but we fixed him." Mark swallowed. Anna sat nearby, sunlight catching in her hair. When she saw him, surprise flashed, then warmth. "Hey," she said. "Hey," he replied, suddenly nervous like a teenager. They talked while Jamie read, small stuff at first, then real stuff. Anna told him she'd gone back to online classes, psychology. Nights were still hard, but she was trying. Mark told her he was thinking about stepping back from his company. "That's huge," she said. "Yeah," he admitted. "I'm tired of winning at the wrong things." They watched Jamie help another kid turn pages. "I have a foundation," Mark said carefully. "It focuses on education and trauma. It needs someone real, someone who understands." Anna studied him. "This isn't pity, right?" He shook his head. "No. This is respect." She didn't answer right away, but she didn't say no. Weeks passed. Mark closed deals he'd been avoiding for years. Cut hours, donated more, slept better. He invited Anna and Jamie to lunch. Then dinner. Then weekends. It wasn't fast, it was honest. One cold afternoon they drove out of the city, snow everywhere, quiet. At the top of a hill stood an old oak tree. "My daughter's spot," Mark said. "She had dreams here." Jamie ran ahead, making snow angels. "I'm painting." Mark tied a small ribbon to a branch. "Let go." Anna took his hand. He didn't pull away. For the first time since losing everything, Mark laughed, really laughed. Later that winter, the foundation hosted a community Christmas. No fancy stuff, just warmth. Mark spoke. "We can't fix our past," he said, "but we can choose what comes next." Anna stood beside him. Jamie waved from the front row. That night, Jamie wrote a letter. "If there's a kid feeling forgotten, tell them someone remembers." Mark watched from the doorway, heart full and terrified, because happiness still scared him. And just when Mark finally believed he deserved this new life, the past was about to test him one last time. Mark should have known peace never sticks around without asking for something back. The call came on a Tuesday night, long after the house had gone quiet. No small talk, no warning. "Mr. Holloway, this is the board." Mark leaned back against the kitchen counter, eyes drifting to the crooked tree still standing in the corner. He already knew what they wanted. They'd found irregularities, they said, old decisions. Numbers pushed. Shortcuts taken years ago, back when he was running from grief instead of facing it. Nothing illegal enough to land him in cuffs, but ugly enough to burn his reputation to the ground. "We need you to step away." "Permanently?" Mark didn't argue. After the call, he sat in the dark for a long time, Jamie's drawing still taped to the fridge. Santa didn't forget us. He laughed once. Bitter. The next morning, headlines hit. Billionaire steps down amid quiet investigation. Phones buzzed. Invitations disappeared. People who once begged for his time suddenly didn't know his name. Anna found out from the news. She came over that evening, Jamie asleep on the couch. "Why didn't you tell me?" she asked gently. Mark stared at his hands. "Because I didn't want to ruin this." She crossed the room anyway. "You don't get to decide that alone." Silence stretched. "I might lose the foundation," he admitted. "The board could freeze funding." Anna inhaled slowly. "Then we figure it out." He looked up. "Just like that," she smiled, tired but real. "That's how survival works." Weeks got harder. Mark sold assets, downsized. The big house felt too loud without laughter, so he let it go. Moved into something smaller, warmer. Jamie didn't care. "This place feels happier," he said, dragging his bear across the floor. Mark almost broke again. The foundation survived, but barely. Mark stopped being the man behind the money and became the man in the room. He showed up, listened, helped. One afternoon, Jamie asked, "Are you still Santa?" Mark knelt. "I never was." Jamie shook his head. "Yeah, you are, you just don't wear red." Anna watched them, heart full and scared. One night Mark confessed everything. The guilt, the mistakes, the fear that he didn't deserve a second chance. Anna held his face. "You're not your worst moment." The next morning, an envelope arrived. Inside was a handwritten note from a family the foundation had helped. "You didn't save us. You reminded us we mattered." Mark folded the letter carefully. That night, he asked Anna a question he'd been holding in for months. "Do you think broken people can still build something real?" She didn't hesitate. "I think broken people are the only ones who do." Jamie looked up from his crayons. "Does that mean we're a family?" Mark's breath caught. Anna nodded. "Yeah, kid, it does." Jamie grinned. "Told you Santa doesn't quit." Mark laughed, free and full. But deep down, he knew something was still coming. Because when life finally gives you everything back, it usually checks to see if you're strong enough to keep it. And the next test wouldn't come from the world, but from the choice Mark had been avoiding since the very beginning. Mark didn't sleep that night. Jamie's question kept replaying in his head like a song stuck on repeat. Does that mean we're a family? Family wasn't just a word to Mark. It was a promise, and promises were the one thing he'd failed at before. By morning, he knew what he had to do, not the easy thing, the right thing. He invited Anna to coffee, neutral ground. No kid ears, no distractions, just truth. She showed up nervous. "You sound serious." "I am," he said, folding his hands. "I care about you and Jamie a lot, but I won't drag you into something half-baked." Anna studied him. "So say it straight." "I want this to be real," Mark said. "Not charity, not comfort, a choice. And if you ever feel like this life isn't yours, I need you to say it." She exhaled, shoulders dropping. "I was scared you'd disappear." "I won't," he said. "Not again." Weeks passed into months. Mark became something he'd never been before present. School pickups, parent meetings, burnt pancakes on Sundays. He learned that being there mattered more than getting it right. One night, Jamie had a nightmare. Mark was there before Anna reached the door. "It was snow," Jamie sobbed, "and nobody came." Mark pulled him close. "Someone always comes now." Jamie believed him. Spring arrived quietly. The foundation stabilized. Mark didn't chase donors, he built trust. People noticed. At a small fundraiser, someone asked, "You miss the old life?" Mark looked across the room at Anna laughing with Jamie. "Not even a little." That summer they went back to the hill. Jamie ran straight to the oak tree. "We're bigger now." Mark tied a new ribbon blue this time. Anna squeezed his hand. "You're really here," he nodded. "I am." That night under a sky full of stars, Mark finally said the words he'd been scared of. "I love you." Anna didn't cry, she smiled. "Took you long enough." Jamie overheard and fist pumped. "Yes, but happiness has a way of demanding courage." A letter arrived, official, heavy. Petition for guardianship review. Jamie's biological grandparents. They'd been watching, waiting. Anna read it twice, hands shaking. "They want custody." Mark felt the floor drop. "They couldn't even call before," Anna whispered. "Now they want him." The fight would be brutal, legal, expensive, personal. Mark looked at Jamie coloring at the table. He'd already lost one child. He wouldn't lose another without standing up. "I'm with you," he said firmly. "All the way." Anna looked at him like she finally believed forever might exist. But the storm wasn't over yet, because the courtroom would decide more than custody. It would decide whether love was enough to make a family official. The courtroom didn't feel real, too clean, too quiet, like emotions weren't allowed inside. Mark sat beside Anna, his knee bouncing despite his effort to stay calm. Across the room sat Jamie's grandparents, well-dressed, stiff, strangers pretending to be family. Jamie wasn't there. Anna had insisted. "He doesn't need to hear people argue over him like he's property," she'd said. Mark agreed. It still felt wrong. The grandparents' lawyer painted a neat picture. Stability, blood, proper upbringing. They talked about Anna like she was a mistake that needed correcting. Mark's jaw clenched. When Anna testified, her voice shook, but she didn't break. She talked about nights on buses, about choosing her son every single day, about love that didn't disappear when things got hard. Then Mark stood. He wasn't supposed to speak much, but the judge allowed it. "I lost my daughter because I thought work mattered more than time," Mark said quietly. "I won't make that mistake again." He talked about Jamie's nightmares, his laughter, his drawings taped to the fridge. "This child isn't saved by money," Mark said. "He's saved by consistency." The judge listened. The ruling wouldn't come that day. Weeks of waiting followed. Jamie sensed it anyway. "Are they taking me?" he asked one night. Anna froze. Mark knelt. "No one's taking you anywhere." Jamie studied his face. "Promise." Mark didn't hesitate. "Promise." Finally, the decision arrived. Custody remains with the mother. Anna collapsed into Mark's arms. They didn't celebrate big, just pizza, Jamie's favorite. Later that night, Mark found Anna crying quietly. "Why are you scared?" he asked. "Because good things don't usually stay," she admitted. Mark reached into his pocket and pulled out a small box. "I don't want to wait for perfect," he said. "I want real." Inside was a simple ring, not flashy, honest. Anna laughed through tears. "You're serious?" "Dead serious." Jamie ran in mid-moment. "Wait, is this a yes thing?" Anna nodded. "It's a yes thing." Jamie cheered like they'd won the Super Bowl. Mark laughed harder than he had in years. But even as joy filled the room, Mark felt something else too. Peace. Not because life was easy, but because he'd finally chosen to stay. And just when Mark thought the hardest chapters were behind them, Christmas came back, ready to test how much they'd all changed. Christmas came back quiet. Not the loud, glittery kind Mark remembered from his old life, full of fake smiles and overpriced nonsense. This one felt different, earned. Snow fell slow and steady as the community hall filled up. Paper snowflakes hung crooked from the ceiling. Kids ran around in mismatched sweaters. The smell of cocoa and cheap cookies filled the air. It wasn't fancy. It was perfect. The Second Start Foundation, they'd renamed it together, was hosting its first full Christmas night. Families who usually slipped through cracks filled every chair. No pity, no speeches about charity, just warmth. Jamie wore a red sweater 2 sizes too big, grinning like he owned the place. "This is our Christmas, right?" he asked. Anna kissed his forehead. "Yeah, baby, it is." Mark stood off to the side for a moment, watching them. A year ago, he'd been alone at a bus stop, numb and hollow. Now his chest felt full in a way money never touched. When it was time, Mark stepped up to the microphone. "I used to think being forgotten was the worst thing that could happen," he said. "Turns out being remembered changes everything." People listened, not because he was rich, but because he was real. "We can't fix our pasts," he continued, "but we can show up for each other now. That's how families are made." Applause rolled through the room, soft, sincere. Later, kids gathered around Jamie as he taught them how to cut paper snowflakes. "You gotta fold it like this," he said seriously. "Then don't mess it up." Anna laughed. Mark took her hand. "You okay?" she asked. "I'm more than okay," he said. "I'm home." That night back at their place, Jamie sat at the table writing with a red crayon. "What you doing, bud?" Mark asked. "A letter," Jamie said, "just in case." Mark smiled. He knew who it was for. Before bed, Jamie looked up at him. "You didn't forget me." Mark swallowed. "Never again." They tucked him in together. Later, Anna leaned against Mark in the quiet living room. The crooked tree blinked softly. "I used to pray for a miracle," she said. "Turns out it was a choice." Mark kissed her hair. "We chose right." Outside, snow kept falling. But this time, it felt warm. And when morning came, it would bring one final surprise, proof that even the smallest voices can change lives far beyond one family. Morning came slow, like it didn't want to rush what they'd built. Sunlight spilled through the windows, bouncing off leftover snow and half-taped decorations. The house smelled like coffee and cinnamon, nothing fancy, just real. Jamie woke up first, as usual. He padded into the living room in socks, dragging his stuffed bear behind him. He stared at the tree for a second, then turned toward the kitchen. "Mark," he whispered. Mark looked up from the coffee pot. "What's up, champ?" Jamie held out a folded piece of paper. "I think this one's important." Mark unfolded it carefully. It was another letter, not to Santa this time. It read in messy crayon letters. "If you see someone alone, sit with them. If someone's cold, share your coat. If someone feels forgotten, remember them." Mark felt his throat tighten. "Can I put it somewhere?" Jamie asked. Mark nodded. "Yeah, somewhere it can be seen." They framed it and hung it at the foundation office that same afternoon. Something unexpected happened after that. People started showing up, not for money, for meaning. A teacher brought her students to volunteer. A bus driver donated his overtime pay. A single dad asked how he could help another family like his. Jamie became unofficial mascot. He greeted everyone like he'd known them forever. "You belong here," he told them. One evening, a woman stopped Mark at the door. "I was that kid," she said, "the one who waited at bus stops." Mark didn't know what to say. "You changed something," she added, "not just for him. For me." That night, Mark sat alone in the office, staring at the letter on the wall. He thought about Emily, about the man he'd been, about the man he was becoming. Anna joined him, slipping her hand into his. "She'd be proud," Anna said softly. Mark nodded. "I finally am too." Weeks passed. Winter softened. One afternoon, Jamie came home quiet. "Someone at school said families don't count unless they're blood," he said. Mark crouched. "What do you think?" Jamie thought hard. "I think family is who stays." Mark smiled. "You nailed it." Spring flowers pushed through snow. Life kept moving, messy, imperfect, beautiful. One night, Jamie looked up from the couch. "Hey," he said, "you know what?" "What?" "I don't think Santa forgot anyone." Mark laughed. "Why's that?" "Because people are starting to remember each other." Mark pulled him into a hug. Outside, the city buzzed again. But somewhere between a bus stop and a broken tree, something real had begun. And as the season changed, Mark realized this story didn't end with healing. It ended with a promise that would last far beyond Christmas. The seasons kept turning the way they always do, whether people are ready or not. Spring gave way to summer and the city felt lighter. Windows stayed open. Laughter spilled onto sidewalks. But for Mark, the biggest change wasn't the weather. It was the rhythm of life inside their home. Mornings were loud now. Jamie argued about cereal. Anna rushed out the door for work and classes. Mark burned toast more often than he'd admit. It was chaotic, imperfect, and everything he'd once believed he didn't deserve. One evening, they sat together on the front steps, watching the sky fade into gold. Jamie leaned against Mark's side. You still remember the bus stop? Jamie asked. Mark nodded. Every day, Jamie smiled. Good, because that's where our story started. Anna reached for both their hands. And where it changed. The Second Start Foundation grew quietly. No headlines, no big donors chasing credit, just people helping people, because they wanted to, not because it looked good. Mark stopped thinking in terms of saving anyone. He thought in terms of staying. One afternoon they returned to the old hill. The oak tree stood strong, ribbons fluttering gently in the breeze, yellow, blue, and now a new green one. Jamie tied himself. What's this one for? Mark asked. Jamie grinned. The future, Anna laughed. That's a big word, Jamie shrugged. We're big now. Mark knelt beside him, heart full in a way that still surprised him. I used to think miracles were loud, Mark said. Turns out they're quiet. They happen when someone chooses to care. That night, Jamie wrote one last letter and taped it to his window. Dear world, if you feel forgotten, you're not. Someone is coming. Mark watched from the doorway, tears threatening but welcome. Later, as they tucked Jamie into bed, Anna rested her head on Mark's shoulder. We did this, she whispered. We chose this, Mark replied. Outside, snow didn't fall this time, but the warmth stayed. Because sometimes Santa isn't a man in red. Sometimes he's a stranger who stops. Sometimes he's a kid brave enough to speak. And sometimes he's someone who finally learned how to stay. And this time, no one was forgotten.